Alright, my previous video was interrupted because I forgot to put back on airplane mode because I was uploading the other videos. I'm going to start over though, but I will upload the video that got interrupted because I think it has purpose. So I read an article this morning, and you can refer to the other video for some of my thoughts because I don't have that much time now to speak. My other video this morning, I read an article this morning. You can watch the other videos and get an idea by Matt Walsh. I've spoken about him before. I discuss his articles quite often. Don't agree with everything he has to say, but I agree with a lot of what he has to say, and I think he's worthwhile for people to read today. Although sometimes his things are a little too long, maybe he could learn to be a bit more pithy. But I have the same problem. But he has a much bigger platform than I have. But I have a potential. Maybe if God wants, I'll have a bigger platform. Anyway, he was saying that we cannot fix the public school system. We can only save our kids from it. And he discussed how he often criticizes the public school system, and he received an email from a public school teacher cursing him out and saying, "I'm one of those evil public school teachers that you hate, and you're just an evil man. And I actually do a pretty good job, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah." And his answer was, "I don't think all public school teachers are bad. I think there are some pretty good teachers and some mediocre ones. But this one, I don't think he's a good teacher because I think just brainwashed and whatever." And he said the public school system no longer exists in order to educate. It exists only to indoctrinate and to keep itself going, really. That's his argument. Now, me reading this as a Hasidic Jew to a certain extent, I guess most people would label me as such. I don't like these labels personally. I don't, for many reasons, I don't really consider myself to be Hasidic or even, that I could really strongly say I'm Jewish because I'm a sinner and I'm not, I could say Shalom Asani Goy, I could say I'm a non-Gentile because my mother's, also a non-Gentile, and my mother was born Jewish, I was born Jewish, but do I really live up to what it means to be a Jew? Like the Magen Avram says, why we say Bracha Shelo Asani Goy, not to be negative against Goyim, but because there's nothing negative about being a Gentile. It's just that we don't, we have more mitzvahs than they do, and we're thankful for these opportunities that we have to do these mitzvahs, and they can choose to do so if they want, so they are actually in a better position because they could convert if they wanted to. Anyway, that's not really what I'm talking about right now. I'm almost to work. This was much quicker taking the Tappan Zee Bridge than taking the Bear Mountain Bridge. But it's more money. It's like another tank of gas, basically. Not another tank of gas, but another gallon of gas. And, that's 30 miles. All right. 25 miles. I don't know. Whatever it is. Let's, aside for now. As someone who has connections with the Hasidic community, I'm reminded of an organization that exists, and I tweeted out this article. This organization is called Yafed.org, which really is a communist organization. It's really quite upsetting. I don't disagree so much with their goals, but I very strongly disagree with their means to their goals. short-sighted to a certain extent, but I think he had a bigger picture, but he just saw himself. He knew how to learn from Meir, even though I disagree with him. But he said that Abbie Hoffman was a big. That was his name. I'm trying to remember. He was a radical, anarchist. I think some kind of hippie. Or I don't know what he was called. He said, "I disagree with your goals, but I love your means." So I somewhat agree with their goals, but I absolutely disagree with the means to the goal, because the means to their goal is rooted in fascism, in what we ironically call the liberal progressive movement, which is neither liberal nor progressive. Talk amongst yourselves. It's just leftist and really fascist. Oh yeah, I'm so verklempt. So, and I'm just making it work, although it'll take a few more minutes to get into work, but I got here really quick. So, what was I saying? So anyway, these people, they want to change the yeshivas that don't give any English, and they want the government to step in and take them, and that's really unconstitutional. It tramples on freedom of religion, but these people don't care about freedom of religion. They care about their goals, which is to undermine freedom of religion, and that's really what it's all about. And, my message to them would be like this: you want to go off the derech. A lot of people have said to me why I say that non-religious Jews would be better off becoming Christians or Muslims than they would remaining as non-religious Jews, non-Orthodox Jews, unless, there are some right-wing people in the Reform and Conservative movements, but they're few and far between, and most of them are going to wind up in Chabad sooner or later, which is a different problem, but it's a lesser problem. For the most part, non-religious Jews are a destructive thing in the world. The Gemara says, the Talmud says, that Az Sheba'u Umas Yisrael, the most brazen of the nations, is the Jews, and that's why the solution to the Jewish problem was the Torah. That was the solution, because they're so destructive. But the thing is there's one very famous Meshumid, and sometimes I call his radio show, and I'm talking to him. I'm always very polite to him and very nice to him. And my feeling about him is, Dr. So-and-so, you're a great Christian, but you're a lousy Jew, and I would much rather see you drop the whole Jewish nonsense and just call yourself a Christian, and you're doing great things in the world because you're teaching ethics and morals and biblical values. But this whole Jewish nonsense, forget about that. You don't need it. What do you need it for? Just because you want to steal Jewish souls? Obviously the best thing is to become a good frum Jew, but even some of these Balei Tshuva who become frum Jews they change their activities, but they don't change their mindset. They have to learn something like Rabbi Victor Miller or something and learn what the world's really all about, So the thing is, most people going off the derech today, they are attracted to atheism and communism and leftist ideology, mostly because the Orthodox Jews made the mistake of living in New York, where that's where they're surrounded by. If the Orthodox Jewish community would move to Texas or somewhere where our values are more similar, we wouldn't have this problem, meaning it would be much better if the people who go off the derech and they want to be goyish, they should go and become Christians rather than be atheists. The Gemara says that atheism is worse than idolatry, and Christianity is not really idolatry. It's, for a Jew, it's idolatry, but it's questionable whether we could really call it idolatry. A lot of people who claim it's idolatry sinner, just like Islam is avodah zarah, but their theology, it's not kosher, but it's not necessarily. Certainly, Islamic theology is properly kosher, but they're the way they conduct themselves is derech minus. It's not that's why it would be called colloquially accurately avodah zarah. Morning, Mike. Are there any? You have spaces? All right. So where's his space? What he's telling me? All right. Anyway. Meaning libam l'shamayim, but the avodah is a derech of zaras. It's anyway. And the same thing is, of course, true Christianity. The question is, can someone believe certain Christian tenets and otherwise be an Orthodox Jew, believe in the 13 principles of our faith, and keep halacha, and could they still call themselves Jewish? That's the argument that Asher Meza makes, even though they're wrong. And I heard this from big poskim, from big Rabbanim Dayanim, that indeed someone could identify, could believe certain Christian beliefs and be frum, and they would not be they could, for example, their wine would be kosher, and they could count for a minyan, and they could, things like that. What's this guy doing? I'm letting him go. No, I can't see. So, where's he going? What is he? Anyway. So my message would be to the OTD person. You're going to be better off. I'm here about 3. I'm here until about 3:30. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's what my message. I mean, these people from Yafet, they're not interested in Christianity. They're not interested in religion for the most part. They're mostly totally secular, and that's the mistake of living in New York. If they, like I said, if they would have lived in Texas, or they would have lived in Pennsylvania, the Himshid, and in the country somewhere where most people around them are Christian, then when their children went off the derech, they would at least still believe in God, and they'd be making the world a better place. Because it's not just it's a horrible thing for a Jew to apostatize and join a different religion, but at least they're not destroying the world if they're Christians, because Christians are for the most part making the world better, as opposed to the secular Jews who are leftist communists who are destroying this world. And we see that, with this whole story with Yafed. I agree, yeshivas should teach English, but the government shouldn't be forcing us to do it, because it's freedom of religion. And I would prefer if I was able to find a yeshiva that I like. There are certain things that are more important to me, though, than the English. But if I would find a yeshiva that I like for my kids, that had a good English program, and there were two, yeshivas, and they were both affordable, and they both had a decent English program. And one had a good, and they're both affordable because in general the Hamish schools are more affordable. But one had an English program, one didn't. I would probably prefer one with a nice English program, as a preference. But there are other things that to me are more important, particularly certain elements that the Hamish schools are much better at, and so I'll choose the Hamish schools over that. And it should be my choice as a parent what kind of schools